Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the first lecture of 2021 under the course Neutrons as Proof of Condensed Matter. Today, a new module starts. This is on small angle neutron scattering, a technique which is fairly young but very popular and very important for several disciplines. This technique sits at the crossroads of physics, chemistry, biology, metallurgy. So this is a very important technique, and I can say it's a subclass of neutron diffraction which you have done earlier, or X-ray diffraction also you know. So this is for mesoscopic length scale studies, and this lectures, 5 lectures, will be delivered by Dr. V.K. Aswal, who is an expert in the field of neutron, small angle neutron scattering, and also X-ray small angle X-ray scattering. So he will be delivering the lectures. I will welcome Dr. V.K. Aswal and request him to deliver the lectures. I hope that you will enjoy, and some of you will need the technique in future, and you will gain enough knowledge to work in the field. Now I will welcome Dr. Aswal.
So good afternoon. What I am going to talk about is small angle neutron scattering, and as Dr. Basu said that there will be 5 lectures, and basically what you will be learning is very basics of small angle neutron scattering, so that if you are interested to use this technique, you can use for your research. And these 5 lectures will be on the first lectures which I will cover today will be on theory of small angle neutron scattering. Then the remaining 4 will be on contrast variation in small angle scattering. You learn that what makes this technique is unique because you can do contrast variation by different means. Then data reduction and analysis methods. This will be lecture number 3. And then applications of this technique to soft matter, nanomaterials, and biology. The last lecture will be on tutorials. So as Dr. Vasu told that it belongs to technique of elastic scattering, which you already learned about diffraction technique. Basically, it's a elastic scattering technique. And you can use this technique for the study of materials like soft matter, nanomaterials, and biology. These are systems where you may be knowing that the properties are governed by the length scales, which are at nano or mesoscopic length scales. And to measure such length scales, which are at nano length scales, you need a technique which is called a small angle scattering. And these kind of materials, they are used in wide range of disciplines, including physics, chemistry, biology, chemical engineering, material science, and so on. So today's lecture, what I will be covering is SANS versus diffractions. As we are already saying that it belongs to elastic scattering experiments like diffraction. So basically, what is difference between these two techniques, and how SANS is different from diffraction. And then would be introduction to this technique. So you learn that it is a low Q technique, and what are the requirement on wavelength and angle or small angle neutron scattering. Then length scale of interest, what are different length scale you can study. And then in the theory, the expression for scattering intensity, what are different terms you will hear. Already you know these terms for diffraction experiments, form factor, structure factor, and how these are different in the case of small angle neutron scattering, and then contrast factor, which will be followed in tomorrow's lectures. And then I would talk about where you can do these experiments, particularly the facilities which we have, SANS and SARS facilitate at BRC. So the principles of these two techniques are same. Only difference comes because of the difference in the interaction of neutron and X-ray with the matter. So this slide shows the comparison of SANS with diffraction experiments. So you already know where you use diffraction, basically to look at atomic structures, length scales, which are order of 1 nanometer or less than 1 nanometer. And you already learned that you get these kind of patterns when you are doing diffraction experiments. But if you have length scale of interest from, let's say, larger length scale than atomic structure, say from 1 to 100 nanometers, such as nanoparticles and biomolecules like proteins, DNA, then you have to go to small q values. Because in the case of smaller length scale, as you measure scattering in reciprocal space, so you have a length, you have a q range of interest is wide q range. But in the case of these kind of large structures, now when you measure scattering in reciprocal space, so you need to have low q basically. And then unlike diffraction experiment, what are the things you can look into in small angle scattering? So form of particle. So we're looking at particles. What is the form of particle? Is it spherical or non-spherical? Then the size of particle. You're looking at different length scales, so you can measure size of particle. And then what is interesting is also you can look at intraparticle interactions through the correlation peak, which we'll learn later on. Then surface structures. So these are various things you can learn from small angle neutron scattering. And then what is different in the case of small angle neutron scattering, in the Q range of interest or your length scale of interest, you are not looking at atomic structure. So if you have to look S2O in the case of small angle neutron scattering, it will not be seen as 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, but as one molecule. And for that, it will be represented by average scattering length density, sum over 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. So this is important. Only when you go to high Q values, you start seeing these atoms and molecules. But in the case of small angle neutron scattering, these molecules will be seen as one unity governed by the scattering length density of the water molecule. So as I already said that, in the case of scattering experiments, you measure scattering in the reciprocal space. So when you have small scattering objects, then the Fourier transform of this will be broader. But if these scattering objects become larger and larger, then the reciprocal or Fourier transform of these objects will be a narrow distribution. Basically, the width of this distribution is reciprocal to the size of the particle. So what does this mean? This means that if your sizes are larger, as you are looking in the case of small angle neutron scattering, you need low Q techniques, because as it becomes larger and larger, your scattering will go to smaller and smaller Q values. So the technique to look at larger length scale is a low Q techniques. How do you look it, and why you call the technique small angle scattering? That is coming in the next slide. So small angle scattering is looking at larger length scale, 1 to 1000 angstrom or 10 to 1000 angstrom. It has to be 1 to 100 nanometer. And then this is the Q range actually to cover this kind of length scale. This is the Q range, and like a typical elastic scattering experiment, what you do is a monochromatic beam of neutron is falling on the sample, and you are measuring scattering as a function of scattering angle. And the elastic scattering experiment, so the magnitudes of wave vector, incident and final are same. And Q is 4 pi sine theta by lambda, where 2 theta is scattering. And if you want to go to low Q values to look at these larger length scales, how do you see actually? So either you increase the lambda, or go for small angles. So these are two options actually. So if you really want to see larger length scales, for that you need smaller Q values. And how do you get this? Either going to larger wavelengths or smaller angles. So this is the Q range which you want to cover. Yes. Okay. So this is the Q range, as I said, of interest. And how you can go to low Q values? You want to have larger wavelength. But the thermal neutrons which are coming from the reactor, they have this kind of typical distribution. So you can see at high Q value, it is decreasing or falling as 1 upon lambda to the 5. So if you want to go to higher wavelength, so you will have very few neutrons left. So the typical wavelength which is used, or you can compromise on higher side, is from 4 to 10 angstrom. So it's not like light you can go in 1000 angstrom, because then there will be no neutrons left. So this is this. So you cannot go for very high wavelength. So if you cannot go very high wavelength, what is the solution left? The solution left is to go to small angles, because then you can go to low Q values. And typical angular values which you can go is in this range. You can go even much lower, but then you have to change the arrangements. But this is typical angular region. So unlike diffractions where you can go to very high angles, 160, 70 degree. But in this case, you go up to 25 degree, but lower value is as low as 0.05 degree. Another thing you should know is, as you want to use higher wavelength, you may have learned about different kind of neutron sources, so thermal neutron sources, and also cold and hot neutron sources. So basically, what you do is you equilibrate your neutrons with at high temperature or low temperature. And okay, so particularly in the case of small angle neutron scattering, where you have the requirement to go to higher wavelengths. So if you use cold source, such as a cold source at 20K, compared to thermal distribution of neutron as room temperature, you can see for higher wavelengths there will be at least one order gain in the flux. So that's why you have to use cold neutrons in the case of SANS, where the requirement is to use higher wavelengths. And also when you go and visit neutron facilities, you will see that SANS instruments are the longest instruments. And the reason for that is, what are the ways to go to small angles? So ways to go to small angle is to decrease the slit sizes or increase the collimation length, or the length of the instrument. And in that case, the flux at the sample position will be given by this kind of expressions. So it depends on the slit sizes of source and sample, and also the distance reciprocal to the square of the distance. So you have two options: either you decrease the slit sizes R1 and R2, or increase the length to go to small angles. But by increasing the length, you can see to get the same smaller angles, you will gain the flux by L square. So what is preferred is longer length compared to the same value of low angle by increasing length. So that is the reason these instruments are long. Scattering 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer. What are the factors that decide this length scale? So because this is in is what is the Q minimum you can measure in your instrument. And similarly, the minimum length will be decided by what is the Q maximum you can use. So basically, when you have an instrument, you will have these two limits actually. One is Q minimum, which is determined by the direct beam. So you will see in the case of SANS, you measure it in a transmission geometry. So always you have a scattering along with direct beam. So since you will have a direct beam, strong contribution. So this will decide your Q minimum. So below this, you will have a strong contribution from the transmitted beam. And because most of the small angle scattering signal, they will decrease drastically at higher Q values. And after some Q values, what will happen is here the scattering will start dominated by the background. So in that case, to measure any scattering signal on Q max will be difficult. So once you know these limits, Q minimum and Q maximum for your instruments, you can come to know the L minimum and L maximum measured by your instrument. So when you approach different instruments to do experiments, it is important to know these limits actually. So what is your length scale of interest? It could be just 10 nanometer or it could be 1000 nanometer. And in that case, it is important to know these values of instrument which you want to use. Okay, so what you measure in a small angle scattering experiment is a scattering intensity. So this is normalized scattering intensity to the unit of cross section, differential scattering cross section per unit volume. So you have these kind of terms. So typically this expression is for this kind of system where these particles such as nanoparticles or macromolecules disperse in a medium. So n is the number density of these particles. So it is obvious higher is the number density, higher will be the scattering intensity. And then V is the volume of the particle. So it goes as V square. So one of the reasons very small particle you cannot measure because your scattering intensity is proportional to V square. So when your V becomes smaller, your scattering intensity will also become small. And then the functionality of your scattering curve depends on these two terms, P of Q and S of Q. So P of Q is called intra-particle structure factor and S of Q is called intra-particle structure factor. So what is happening is when you have a large particle like biomacromolecules, so your neutrons will be scattered from the nuclei of different atoms within the particle and interfering. So that will lead you to the intraparticle structure factor. So it is nothing but the square of the form factor. So since this interference is coming from the nuclei within the particle, so it will give you the information about the shape and size of the particle. Whereas in the case of interparticle structure factor, it is arising because of your neutron scattering from the nuclei of different particles and interfering. So that means it is looking at different particles or the correlation between the particles. So since it is looking at the correlation between the particles, so you can get the information like interactions between the particles. And then this term is important, which you will learn in details later on. Particularly important because if what is rho p? Rho p is the scattering length density of the particle, and rho m is the scattering length density of the medium. So you can see if they can become same, then you will have no intensity. Or if that is not significant, you can also change this. And what is good with the neutron, you will see that you can vary this term easily as compared to other techniques. So it's very, very important, which is called contrast factor. So as I was saying that importance of contrast variation. So this term is called contrast factor. And what is good with this small angle neutron scattering technique is that you can make invisible things to visible and vice versa, visible to invisible. And also you can complex system you can simplify. For example, a core cell structure you can see just as a core or a cell. So how you will see that I will come in the tomorrow's lecture. But these are the good things with the neutrons, unlike other techniques. Okay, so now as I said that your scattering curve depends on two terms. One is intraparticle structure factor, and another is interparticle structure factor. So to understand the scattering curve, you have to know about the functionality of these two factors. So let's start with the intraparticle structure factor. As I said, this is the Fourier transform of your scattering line density distribution. So if you start with the homogeneous spherical particle with the constant scattering line density, so this is a constant term, so it will come up, and you know how the Fourier transform is expressed as. So this is the expression. And then since you have the spherical particle, you can use spherical polar coordinates. And this is assignment for you to get this expression actually. So you can simplify this term. And this is the expression for your intraparticle structure factor for a spherical particle. And then if you plot this curve for different sizes of the particles. So for example, in this plot, you have this intraparticle structure factor, which is PQ, represented by PQ, for different sizes of the particle. And as I was saying that as the size is increased, this width is decreased. So 100 angstrom size of the particle will have the lowest spread. So from that, sometimes just looking at the data, which Q range and what is the width, you can come to know about the size of the particle. Then you can differentiate different shapes of the particles because their intraparticle structure factor will be different. So this is for different sizes of the particle, spherical particle. And if you plot on log, you will see the form factor oscillations, interference pattern. But when you do the experimental, when you measure them experimentally, very difficult to see them because of the reasons such as polydispersity and resolution function, which I will come in later slide. And then this is for ellipsoidal particle. So you can elongate one side of a spherical particle. And then what you see is this semi-minor axis is kept same, and it's elongated along the major axis. And when the elongation increases, your contribution width also in the low Q is different. So you have more contribution towards the lower Q values when you are semi-major axis. So you can differentiate ellipsoidal from the spherical particle. And when you have a rod-like kind of particle, then you have particularly in the intermediate Q range, which is decided by the diameter and the length of the particle, you will get a particular scaling behavior. In this case, rod-like the intermediate Q range, your scattering will go as Q to the power -1, the intermediate Q range. And when you have a disk-like particles, then in the intermediate Q range, it will go as 2 to the minus 2. So these kind of special features related with specific geometries of the particles, you can differentiate by looking at the scattering pattern. So many times when you have these anisotropic particles, so if they are randomly distributed in your system, so your scattering is isotropic, like this case, randomly oriented rod-like particles. So you will get isotropic scattering. But once if you have a mechanism to align these anisotropic particles, then you start seeing Q dependent scattering. So basically, this is the direction of Q, and this is the direction in which your cylinder is aligned. So depending on the angle theta, your form factor will change. So this is for aligned particles. And how do you align? If you have these particles magnetic, you can use magnetic field. Or if you have them in the solution, then you can use shear actually. So there are these kind of shear cells, which by applying shear, one fixed cylinder, another rotating, you can align them by the shear. So in this case, then your scattering will be Q dependent. So as I told that most of your systems, practical systems, they would be polydispersed. So you want to make a monodispersed system, but the synthesis is not that easy. So whenever you measure them, you will see that there is some polydispersed in the system. And then your major scattering will be the convolution of your size distribution. And in that case, as I was saying, that these form factor collision oscillations is very difficult to see, because for different sizes they will come at different Q values, because these oscillations, they depend on the size of the particle. So they will smear out when you have the polydispersed system. So whenever you measure a system, so it's very difficult to see these oscillations. So if you have very highly monodispersed systems, then you may see them actually, but not so many, maybe 2 or 3 maximum. And even though you have a monodispersed system, you also, these oscillations also get smeared by the resolution function. So one of the drawback in the case of neutron scattering is that your flux are not very high. So then what do you do is to measure your sample in reasonable time is to spoil your resolution little bit. And once you spoil your resolution, then you don't get the ideal predicted curves. So your ideal curves get convoluted by the resolution function. So in that case also, you will see the smearing of the oscillations. So these are the two things which will smear your scattering profile. And if you compare neutron and X-ray, in the case of X-ray, yes, you may have learned that you have a very high scattering intensity, so you can tighten your resolution functions. There you can see much more peak oscillations than what you see in the case of neutron. So always resolutions are. So whatever concepts I was telling you, they were for the particles dispersed in a medium. So many times these particles they aggregate, and if this aggregation is scale invariant, so you can treat them, or they are treated many times by fractal structures. And in the case of mass fractals, your distribution of mass is not as r to the power 3 but less than 3, and this has if it goes r to the power df and then df is less than 3, it's called the mass fractal dimension. And if for such system it can be shown that your scattering intensity in the q range, particular q range, can vary as q to the power minus df. So you can see you will have this scaling law, and from that you can get the mass fractal dimension. And also you may have surfaces which are not smooth actually. For a smooth surface, your surface area goes as r to the power 2, but if it is not smooth, it is, let's say, rough, then your surface area will increase, and then your fractal dimension, the surface fractal dimension, will be greater than 2, and usually it is less than 3. For such surfaces, your scattering intensity then varies by this law actually. E to the power minus 6 minus ds. So your ds is between 2 to 3, and your q dependence will be between 3 and 4. So if you have linearity, if you plot log of I versus log of q, then you will see a slope of 3 to 4 in the case of surface fractal, and less than 3 in the case of mass fractal. So you can differentiate mass and surface fractal using small angle Newton scattering. So this is what you measure actually, log intensity as a function of q. So in the intermediate q range, when you have a mass fractal, then you see this kind of scattering profile with the slope less than 3, and higher q values, which is called Porer region, or you also see surface fractal region, where your intensity will have a slope between 3 and 4. So you can differentiate the mass fractal and surface fractal by the different slope of your scattering, also in the different q range. So this was about intra-particle structure factor for individual particle, and also when you have particles aggregated. But what happens when your system is not dilute actually? So this contribution of intra-particle structure factor you can neglect when you have a dilute system. But when you have a concentrated system, you have to look for this contribution. And intra-particle structure factor PQ was Fourier transform of your scattering line density, and your intra-particle structure factor is Fourier transform of G of R, Pierre correlation function. What is the probability of finding another particle at a distance r when one particle is at origin? So this is Fourier transform. S of q is Fourier transform of your Pierre correlation function G of R. And you may be knowing for different kind of systems how your Pierre correlation function looks like. So when the system is dilute in the sense your interparticle distance will be much larger than the size of the particle. Then, and what is plotted is r by d. This is the distance between the particles. So in the case of dilute system, G of R above the diameter of the particle is 1. And when you have a concentrated system, so you will start seeing short range interaction, and then typical liquid like system. This will be your G of R. And when you have an order system, then you get your G of R like this, actually, long range order. You start seeing long range order in the system. So these are typical G of R for different kind of systems. And in the case of small angle neutron scattering, you will see all of these. So most of the times you will deal with the dilute system, so that you don't have to bother about the structure factor. And whatever you get scattering will be from your P of Q, that is intraparticle structure factor, form factor. And then you can get the information about the shape and size of the particles. And many times you cannot avoid your systems to be dilute. So once it's not dilute, then you will get these kind of, you will start seeing these kind of G of R and corresponding structure factor. Then you have to consider this G of R. And also you can have the crystalline, liquid crystalline materials at the length scale proved in small angle neutron scattering, like many liquid crystals, which do have some long range order. And for that, then you will also get corresponding Bragg peak in your scattering pattern. So if you have different G of R, what will be corresponding structure factor in your system? So for dilute system, if your G of R is this thing, your structure factor will be flat. So basically 1. No structure factor. No structure factor means SF2 will be 1. And this is, as I said, SF2 is Fourier transform of G of R. And when you have a concentrated system, then we'll see this kind of pattern showing the several maxima of decreasing amplitude, typical liquid like a structure of short range order. And when you have crystalline materials, then you will see Bragg peaks as seen in the conventional diffraction experiments. That is a structure factor. But of course, when you see scattering intensity, then it has to be multiplied with form factor, which will be decreasing as a function of Q. So when you have an order system in a small angle scattering, you will always see these having very low intensity, because it gets multiplied with form factor. Like X-ray case, in the case of diffraction, at higher angles you have very low intensity because you have X-ray form factor going down, unlike neutrons. That is for atoms. But when you are talking about particles, in that case, also the form factor will go down in the case of neutron, because now the form factor is form factor of the particle, which will fall as a function of Q. So when you measure scattering intensity in the case of small angle neutron scattering, these intensity will be very, very low as they get multiplied with the form factor. So what this slide shows is your structure factor for different kind of potential. So let's take, you are talking about short range interaction in the system, which will be in most of the cases. So you are considering structure factor for different interactions. So attractive, square wave potential, hard sphere, and Coulomb repulsion. And you can differentiate this for your system, particularly from the low Q behavior actually. So if you see behavior in the low Q region here, so your structure factor has very different profile. Particularly the contribution of structure factor at Q equal to 0 is isothermal compressivity of the system. So that means when you have repulsive system, it is difficult to compress them. So it is difficult to compress them means their isothermal compressivity will be low. And when system becomes attractive, then it is easier to compress. So your this S of Q equal to Q0 contribution will increase. And from that, you can come to know when your system is going from repulsive to attractive. Very, very important, because many times if you see, you have the colloids, many medicine and colloidal products like paints, there is expiry date written on them. So what is the concept actually? So they will be stable as long as they are repelling. As long as particles are repelling, they will be stable. But once with aging, the interaction between the particle is modifying, and if it goes from repulsive to attractive, then they will start coagulating, and that is the time you can expect that your product is not stable. And that is where you use this technique to find out how to put up the expiry date on the product. So very useful concept to differentiate the different interaction in the system, and hence the stability of your system. So you do neutron, and also you can do X-ray scattering. So the principles are same, only a difference is coming because of the scattering is different for neutron and X-ray, as the neutrons are scattered by the nuclei and X-rays by the electron clocks. So in the case of X-ray, your scattering intensity will increase as the Z is increasing. So basically, scattering amplitude is proportional to Z, scattering intensity is proportional to Z. And as you may have already learned, that in the case of neutron, the behavior is irregular. So, and you make the advantage that you can see the low Z using neutrons, and within the isotope, your scattering lengths are very different. So, blue is for negative and green is for positive scattering length. So, not magnitudes are different, but their signs are also different. So, what does this mean? So, whenever you have high Z component and you want to see, X-ray is always preferred. High Z component you see by X-ray, and when you have low Z component where your X-ray is not sensitive, like hydrogenous material, then your small angle neutron scattering is the best. And of course, you can make use of both of them. Look both low Z and high Z in the systems, and that's I will be showing some of the examples tomorrow when I talk about contrast variation in small angle scattering. So, typical intraparticle structure factor or form factor is of this kind, monotonically decreasing as a function of Q. And this is your structure factor, particularly when you have short range interaction in the system. And what does this mean is, most of your scattering pattern, which you will see in the case of small angle scattering, will be either this, they are going down as a function of Q, and this width will be reciprocal to the size. So if your size is larger, so this will be narrower, this curve will be narrower. So this curve can go here for larger size, and for a smaller size, this can go up. And also, if you have different shapes, then this functionality will be different, as I already showed you. So this will be one kind of pattern. And when you have a concentrated system where there is structure factor in the system, then your scattering intensity is the product of these two terms, P of Q and S of Q. So when this term gets multiplied with this term, so this pattern with this pattern, then typically you see this kind of pattern actually. Correlation peak, the first peak will be observed, and others are difficult to see because this gets multiplied with a smaller number here. So most of the time, correlation peak 1 and maybe some harm. And if you have an order system, then you can see some other peaks with very decreased intensity. So these will be typical kind of scattering pattern. We will see in the small angle scattering. So after talking all this, if you want to know what can you get from a small angle scattering? So if you are interested to doing a small angle influence scattering, then what can you get from this technique? So let's assume that you have this kind of system where you have some inhomogeneity in the system, let's say either polymer or a colloidal system or a biomacromolecule dispersing a medium. So what are the information you can get? And you already know that now this is the scattering pattern. Your scattering intensity is determined by, given by this expression. So from this expression, what are the information you can get? This is very, very important. You should know. One is number density of the particle. So n is the number density of the particle. It means you can get number density. And V is the volume of particle. So NV is basically phi, volume of phi. So these are the things you can get, number density and volume fraction. So if you want to know what is the number density of particle in your system or the concentration of systems, you can get. Very simple, because these are the terms that decide this. And then this form factor term, as I said, that you can get information safe size distribution. And from structure factor, you can get information on interaction in order. And this you learn more from this contrast factor, rho p minus 1 square. You can get information on safe size and size distribution. So these are various things if you want to know for your system, you can get by small angle influence scattering. I would say it would not be easy to get all of them in one go, because see, these are the things you can get it, but to get a particular information, you need to plan the experiments tactically. So not all of them you can get for your system, but definitely it will depend on how you plan experiments. So many times, if you already know the concentration, you get other information. Or if you already have some information about safe size, then you can get other things. So it is always good to know as much as information about your system, so that the reliability to get other parameters also increase. So where are the applications? What are different kind of systems? Those are studied by small angle influence scattering. So soft matter is one. For example, to look at polymers, amplifiers, colloids. Then biological systems for these kind of components like lipid membranes, proteins, DNA, viruses. So I would say that small angle neutron scattering, 70 to 80% of small angle neutron scattering are used for these kind of systems, soft matter and biological systems. And then reason being that these are systems where you have a hydrogenous components. Most of them will have either H2O or hydrogen component in the molecule. So because of that, and which I will come later on, you can vary the contrast. So as I was saying that with the contrast, you can get the composition of the particle. So since there is a easy possibility to vary the contrast, these are the widely studied system using small angle neutron scattering. And another important thing for this system to be characterized by small angle neutron scattering is that you measure these system under native structure. So under native conditions, you are measuring this system. So that means for many biological systems, if you use other techniques like microscopy, so you don't measure them under native conditions. So with the scattering technique, you have the advantage that you can measure these system under native condition, or you can measure native structure. And then other systems which are studied by small angle neutron scattering are nanomaterials, such as nanoparticles, carbon nanotube, alloys, and ceramics. So, and also one field which is widely studied only by small angle neutron scattering, look at vortex structures, flux lines melting, flux lines thinning, and you can use SARCs to characterize wide range of nanomaterials, but the advantage with neutrons will be that you can look both nuclear and magnetic interaction, and also with the neutrons you measure the sample in bulk. Only because of neutrons, as you know, are magnetic particles, and you can look at the magnetic structure in the system. So coming to the instrumentation of small angle neutron scattering, like for a diffraction experiments, you need to have a source. Then you need a monochromator for the wavelength selection, and the most commonly used is velocity selector, which can select a wavelength and also give you the wavelength spread of your choice. And then since you want to go to small angle, in the case of small angle neutron scattering, so you need tight collimation. So for that, I already told that instruments which are used are long. And then once you build an instrument to cater it for different disciplines, you need to have different environments for increasing temperature, applying pressure, applying magnetic field, and so on. And detectors, mostly 2D detectors, and since detectors used in the case of neutrons are big ones, so these are the gas detectors. EMC gas detectors are used in the case of detecting the scattered neutrons. And this slide shows the two small angle neutron scattering facilities we have at Bhava Atomic Research Center. They work on different principles to go to low Q values. So first is slit collimation based SANS, where by decreasing the slit sizes, you go to small angles. So we have an instrument which is about 5 meter long. Collimator is about 2 meter, and also sample detector distance is about 2 meter. And this can go in this Q range actually. The Q range covered is this value actually. But if you want to go to very low Q values, then we will use another principle of So in this case, you use a set of parallel crystals, and then what you do is you put a sample in between, and you rock the second crystal with and without the sample, and from that you can go to very small angles, and you can see compared to slit collimation, in this case Q range cover is very low. And what you can do tactfully is that overlap these two Q range. So if you have different length scales going from a few nanometer to 100 of nanometers, then you can overlap these two Q range and look at wide range length scales in the samples. So this is a photograph of this slit collimation based facility at reactor VRC. So as I said, it's a 5 meter long instrument. Inside this shielding, you will see the velocity selector, which looks like this. This one actually. So basically, it's a cylinder with it's a rotating cylinder with helical slots, and the speed of moving helical slots decides what is the wavelength you can pass. So if you want to move faster neutrons with this velocity selector, then you have to increase the speed. And then you can also tilt these helical slots, which will decide your wavelength spread. And then this part is the collimator part, which is about 2 meter long. And the typical slits which we use are in the order of centimeter square or section. And what this plot shows is the scattering data measured at different facilities. So VRC with two data measured at PSI Switzerland and IML Grenoble, France. You can see, I mean, in the Q range, we can measure data. They nicely overlap. So Q resolution and other issues, they are perfect. with respect to the international standard. And this is what we do now. We have a set of detectors. So presently 4 detectors in cross geometries to enhance the acquisition rate. And in a particular detector, this is how your scattering patterns look like. So we have a beam stop in the center of the detectors, and there is a small hole also in the beam stop, so that simultaneously we can measure the transmission to the sample. So otherwise, what you have to do is, if you want to measure transmission, you have to remove this beam stop. So that unnecessarily takes a lot of time. If you want to measure transmission and scattering pattern at different times. So what we have done is, in the beam stop, we have put a small hole which is of the millimeter size, and what it does, it allows a small fraction of transmitter neutrons to pass through this beam stop and detected by the detector, which is comparable to the scattering patterns. So this is your transmission data in the center, and these both sides of transmission data, you have the scattering patterns. It has to be symmetric for isotropic samples. And what you should know is a typical time. Neutron is a slower technique. So typical time to measure a sample takes about 4 hours. Of course, it will depend on the scattering from your sample. So we typically measure samples from 1 to 8 hours. So if you have very good scattering, then within 1 hour we can measure. And if it is poorly scattering samples, then we give at least 8 hours, 8 to maybe sometimes 1 day, also 24 hours. And now we have a sample changes where we can load up to 7 samples. So many times what we are doing is we are loading 6 samples for 24 hours. So average time about 6 hours for a sample. So that is typical time for measuring a sample, about 6 hours in the case of this one. And these are important things you should know when you plan a small angle neutron scattering experiments. So what is the Q range of instrument? Because this will decide your length scale of interest. So if they are too small, maybe you cannot see, and also if too big, you cannot see. So it's very important to know what is the Q range to measure your length scale of interest. And then also, what is the source flux actually? So, I mean, the sources are known by the kind of flux they provide. So, if you are trying to, sometimes people come with the sample and you don't get enough scattering, and the reason may be the scattering is very, very low. So, you should also have some idea that what kind of scattering you are looking from the sample. So, if the contrast is poor, you cannot see. If the size of your scattering object is very, you cannot see. If the thickness of your sample is very low, you cannot see. So it's very important to know, I mean, what kind of scattering you are trying to look. And also, what are the sample environment available with the instrument? Because what is the temperature range you are interested to vary? What is the magnetic field you want to apply? Pressure, flow condition. So these things is good to know if they are with the instrument, so that if you plan experiments, they are available. And we do neutron scattering, and also to complement neutron scattering, we also do X-ray scattering, small angle X-ray scattering. We have some lab-based sources at our place at Bhabha Atomic Research Center. But also what we also look after is a small angle and wide angle X-ray beam line at RRCAT. And this beam line has been operational since last year, and it is open to users. So it's a sophisticated beam line. You can do many things in this beam line. And the main component of the beam lines are you have a double crystal monochromator to change the wavelength, then toroidal mirror to enhance the scattering intensity of the sample, and scattering from the sample is measured by 2 sets of detectors. So one is online X-ray imaging plate, mover detector stage to change the Q range. And for wide angle, if you want to see also atomic structures from your samples, then also there is gas detector put at close to the sample to look at wide angles. So this is the Q range in small angle scattering you can cover 0.005 to 0.35 angstrom inverse, and this is the wide angle Q value you can cover, and also the energy you can change in this range 5 to 20 keV. So those who are interested, make use of this facility. They can look details at this website and also make use of this facility. So to conclude this first lectures, I think what you should remember is SANS is a useful neutron scattering technique for studying the materials on a length scale 1 to 100 nanometers. So anytime if you think that you have a length scale of interest in this range, then you can think of this technique. And the information you get from this technique is structure interaction of particle dispersion. So structures come from the form factor, and interaction come from the structure factor. And then why should you use? So many times people are using other techniques like microscopy or even light scattering. So you can use it for a variety of samples which you will learn in coming lectures. And there are some unique properties of neutrons which make it useful to study samples in bulk. So this is good thing. So magnetic samples. And also for hydrogenous component, you will see that there is a easy possibility to vary the contrast. So that will make you many fields like soft metals and biology. If you have a samples and you want to study, then neutron scattering is unique for these kind of samples. Yes.